Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to draw a maple leaf. So grab your pencils and let's get drawing. The maple leaf is an iconic leaf, often associated with maple syrup, and in the country that I'm in, Canada, is very well known for that. The maple leaf typically has some outer edges like this. Every leaf is a little different, we know that. They say that, according to some fossil records, that maple trees are actually very ancient and they date back nearly 100 million years. So that actually puts them in the same time as the dinosaurs. So that's quite interesting as well. So maple trees were actually growing when the dinosaurs were there. It's kind of cool. I think there's many different types, so not every maple tree that was around in that time span is still around today, but I think you get the point. So the first thing you want to do is just make sure that you establish your outline. You have your stem, you have your piece over here. We're going to kind of, this is really just one of the many different styles that a maple leaf can be. So follow along. We'll try to put this all together in the best possible way. So you kind of want to start with your rough outline, and all other lines and things like that can certainly be adjusted accordingly. But at least for now, this is kind of the outline that we want to start with, and we'll fill in and adjust as we need to. I feel like we're definitely going to do some adjusting here, so don't worry if yours looks just a little bit different. Your stem should always be a little bit darker, and start thinner here and just go a little bit thicker as you go longer. That's a classic way to draw a stem of a leaf. So don't be afraid to start by establishing your stem. And then because of that, from the stem, you essentially want to, well, first off, grab just a thinner pencil and just grab this point here and draw a line that goes to your highest point over here, okay? So we might want to have this line that goes up, and you can go thinner as you go away. The line is more like veins on a leaf. They're thicker over here. This is your other apex over here, and you want to go towards that. So we might also get a line that kind of goes like that. Same over here. This is your apex on this side, and we're going to get a line that kind of goes that way as well. So, okay. And we are also going to get this one over here, and we're going to get this one over here. Okay, notice how I went stronger over here and lighter as we went away. The little, we'll call them apexes over here, or peaks that go away, they also have lines that extend off of this. So what you can do is just create some lines like that. In fact, you can also have a couple other, even though I guess this could have a little piece that goes out. You may also want to just do some of these. So and then, although down here they don't go to one of these apexes, you might still want to create some of these lines that go off like that. This is exactly what a common leaf will do, is have these pieces that kind of do that. So you want to try to mimic the exact same for your leaf as well, okay? Okay, so we're kind of starting the framework for this. Okay. What else? The stem is certainly just a little bit larger at the base, so I want to just clean that up as well. There's 128 species of maple trees in the world, some of which are over 150 feet tall, so quite large. Keep that in mind. Very, very interesting fact. At this point, I'm just going to go back through my outlines at the outer edges and just make sure that A, I'm happy with it, but B, I haven't really smudged them out too much. I think some of them were moving around, and it's just good to kind of go back and reposition some of these as well. Okay. Some of these are too far in, so you want to maybe bring them out just a little more. Okay. And I think it's important just to reiterate that every maple leaf is a bit different. Difference in size, difference in shape. There's no rule that 1, 2, 3 have to be like that. So don't feel like, you know, yours looks different or, oh, this isn't looking right. So don't worry about that. What I find interesting is that, I mean, the leaf that I'm referencing is down at the bottom. These two pieces tend to be a lot longer, and they go back to this center point. But at the outer skirts, you don't have such long, you know, tips of the leaf as well. So I find that interesting that down here you kind of have these long pieces that do that. So kind of interesting to think about that as well. What maple trees are really known for is maple syrup. They produce phenomenal maple syrup, and a fact is that a maple tree must be 30 years old before it can have its sap extracted. So what happens is, if you don't know this, a maple tree has its sap extracted, and then that becomes, you can use the sap to create maple syrup. But it actually takes between 40 and 50 gallons of sap to create 1 gallon of maple syrup. So 40 to 50 gallons of sap, that's the stuff that drips out of the tree. And then if you want to convert that into maple syrup, it takes 40 to 50 gallons to get 1 gallon of maple syrup. We actually did a video on our channel of the sounds of a maple syrup farm. So if you're curious what it sounds like when a maple syrup farm is actually harvesting and all the drip drops coming out of the maple tree, you can just search on our channel, sounds of a Canadian maple syrup farm, and you can check it out. It's very relaxing as well. So if you're into that, actually, if you didn't know, we have some videos that you can play in the background while you do your drawings. It's actually meant to be like a relaxing soundtrack of various sounds that you can play while you draw. So not only do we do the drawings, we actually have like sounds that can help you draw as well. Okay, so yeah, what we're doing here is we're really just making sure that everything looks, you know, to our liking. So just review everything, make sure everything's okay. At this point, what you really want to do is just follow through with some shading. Just make sure that everything looks well. Typically, there's no perfect rule, but you might have a dark area right over here. Let's say this part of the leaf kind of folds. So you can actually just create some dark shading here, but make sure that you blend it out quite nicely. You want to make sure that you know, looks and shows as realistic as possible for you, okay? You might also want to just, well, let's sharpen this just ever so slightly just to give a little bit more. You might want to just re-emphasize some of the lines here. And we can do that as well. It's tricky though too, because you know every leaf is just the tiniest bit different. I would say that if I take this darker line that I just accentuated, I can actually create some darkness this way. Start with your line and move away. So you see how I did that? I then want to just use my smudge technique and just allow it to kind of bleed onto the page. That right there will give you some more realistic shading on a leaf. Start from your dark line and move away. And you can even start darker towards the center of the leaf as well. We can actually do the same on all of these. It's not required, like it's not a rule that you have to kind of start where it's dark and then move your way out. It's not necessarily a rule. But I do find that a lot of people kind of like to use that pattern when drawing leaves. So let's see if we can make this look as realistic as possible. If you're wondering about the process of taking sap out of a tree, the process of taking sap out of the tree does not harm the tree at all. It's actually a very natural process. So don't worry about that. That's something that's very common and does not harm the tree. So you're taking the sap out to create maple syrup, right? That's what we just spoke about. And then the other interesting fact that I can tell you is that a maple tree, if planted in the right place, can live up to 300 years. So one maple tree can actually live up to 300 years, which is quite wild when you think about it. The trick here is also to be patient. So, you know, what we're doing is we're creating some of the shadows and shading around the veins of the leaf. But if you rush it, you're gonna feel like you just you didn't capture it in the right way. So start along the line and move your way out. And just repeat. Use your smudge technique to really let that lead bleed onto the page. And I'm going to do the same this way as well. So you can see what we did here was we actually created some shading around the veins of the leaf, but there's also these little sub-veins that exist over here as well. There's nothing wrong with also just going in and just adding some shading around there as well. So you can do that. Some of these lines kind of get lost, so you might need to find yourself going back and redrawing them, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. So we're just going through that process. There's no need to rush. You can certainly take your time and just add the shading as you need to. That's all I'm doing at the moment. So it's starting to come together, but what you might find yourself in a position of is just the outer parts. The other parts aren't really, they're looking like a little disconnected from this leaf. I would suggest that you kind of go back. Let's sharpen this up real quickly. You can go back with a mid-level pencil, something like a 5B, and you can actually just add in just the slightest little bit of shading just around the outer parts of the leaf. So if you do that, you can kind of just like I'm doing over here, just add in some shades around the outer parts, because we kind of did the inside. And I'm not saying we're done with the inside, I just want to pivot and shift to some of the outer parts. But I think it's important to use your 5 versus something darker, and make sure that you use your smudge technique as well, because I think that will show really well for your leaf as well. I guess the other fact about maple trees is that in the fall time, if you live in a place where you see a lot of great colors on the leaves, a lot of time it's the maple trees that produce some of those amazing colors. So the red maple is a very famous tree, and I believe the red maple though has the red leaves all year round. They turn colors, right? So they might turn orange, and they say that the iconic fall foliage is a result of the maple trees, like red, yellow, orange, and autumn shades. So the maple tree also contributes to a lot of beautiful sights and colors as well. So what I'm doing here is I'm just continuing to add some shadows and shading throughout the leaf. And I'm just taking that outline of the leaf that I drew and just making sure that I just give it just enough where it sort of looks like it belongs, right? So we kind of went through and added a bit of darkness around. I would say that another really good thing to do is just redraw the outer line of this leaf. It's really nice to make sure that you have a continuous line around the outer portion. It really will show for a nice leaf and just look really, really connected and kind of uniform, right? You can already see this coming together a lot better and just looking a lot cleaner and neater and just a lot more uniform. And that's really what I'm trying to do right now. So let's continue on that. Let's get this piece done. Remember, the two bottom pieces, they purposely extend quite large down below. So that's something that's purposely done that way. So we're pulling this all together. We're just making sure we're reviewing it, making sure we're happy with this. One of the challenges though is when you redo that outer line, you kind of create this darker area, like a contrast where the outer line is dark and over here is kind of, a bit lighter. So there's nothing wrong with going back and also just adding some darkness around that line, right? So see how I'm doing that? See how I'm bringing in the darkness from the edge? If you can do that, it won't look so much like this dark line and then white. You might want to bring in and pull in some of the darkness. So let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can just go around the outer part and do that. I mean, in this particular case with drawing of the leaf, I try to bring everything into kind of the middle, the center. So my lines will, for the most part, always kind of go back to that. You can try the same, see if it works for you. I'm not going to rush this part either. I'm really going to make sure that I take my time, just make sure that this looks as good as possible. I'd like to do a good job. I'd like to make sure that I'm happy with the end result. There's no point of kind of doing something and just for the sake of doing it and you kind of rush it or you're not really too happy with it at the end. So I want to take that. That's true in a lot of different things. I want to take that same principle here in this drawing here. I'm actually in Canada myself, so maple syrup and maple trees and all that. Sort of something from home, so hopefully I can do as good of a job as possible in this video for you. How are you doing? Are you drawing? Are you watching? If you're drawing, how is your drawing coming along? Are you having challenges or are you just sailing right through it and it's kind of smooth sailing? We would love to hear from you and please let us know how you're doing. This channel is really about teaching you and showing you things, teaching you things and showing you how to draw, but it's about the process, right? It's about the learning process and trying to teach you and show you and kind of expand our knowledge, right? Our creativity and our skill set and I guess all of these different things that we can kind of improve upon and make ourselves better artistically and learn a new skill. So hopefully you are doing that. Hopefully you're doing just that. That would be great if you are. But my point was to leave a comment. Don't forget to do that. We really enjoy that. Leave a comment. Say hi. How long have you been following the channel? Has it been just now you're stumbling across it? Has it been 1 year, 2 years? We've been posting videos for the last 2 years at the time of this post. So if you've been around from the beginning, you can certainly let us know. We'd love to hear from you if you've been a longtime fan. And even if not, if you're somewhat of a new fan of the channel that are just kind of discovering the channel, we would love to hear from you as well. But just a special shout out to anyone who's been around with us since the 2018 time frame. That's when we first started posting. I registered the channel in 2017, but I didn't do anything with it for about 8 months, and then after 8 months I started to do some posts, and that's kind of how the time frame has come together on this channel. So special thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel. I'm actually really liking how this is coming together. I've described to you in detail why we're doing this, and you can see already that we no longer have this kind of floating outer line that's sitting there. We're actually creating this item, this object that looks like it's really one and complete, and that's really what I'm trying to do here. So if you're doing the same, please take your time and make sure that you do this as well. You can pause this video as you need to. That's another thing that we always say. We even write it in the description of the video. You know, follow along and pause as you need to. There's no requirement that you have to go at the same pace as us. So feel free to pause as you need to. There's nothing wrong with that as well. I think what I'm gonna do is make these the two pieces down at the lowest part a little bit darker. Let's just assume that they have maybe some darker light sources or shading or tones just down here. And I'm gonna do the same on this one. So I'm actually going to, yeah, I'm gonna make sure this is, you know, somewhat darker over here. Someone's honking out there. I don't know what's wrong, but just chill out. Just chill out. They say drawing is also a form of like relaxation or stress relief or a creative outlet. So is that something for you as well? Let us know. For me, it is pretty relaxing and pretty calming. I mean, I also draw for the channel. So I have kind of two drawings. Like I draw when I'm not recording, which is more of like practice and just kind of freehand and stuff like that. But then when I draw for the channel, I'm a little more involved. Like I'm kind of talking and reading facts and stuff like that. So there's kind of like, I would say there's two different ways that I create my drawings. More freehand and more like just kind of go with the flow. And the other way I do it is a little more like, you know, on camera, just kind of walking you through it. So in both cases, I do feel a bit more relaxed, but I think when I'm not on camera, I feel like I take more risks. Like I can try new things and be a little riskier with the art. So kind of nice. If you don't know, sometimes what I do is when I'm not on camera, I'll try new things and then I'll like redo the drawing on the camera. So sometimes I like what I've created so much that I'll just do it again and just hit the record button and kind of do it with you guys. So you guys can also just follow along, which is nice. So we're starting to get full circle. If you notice, we started over here. We're just gonna finish this up. And like I said, your lines, it is nice if they all kind of go back to either this point or somewhat of the center line. So that's what I've been trying to do over there. At this point, I would say just review and look through some of your areas in which you've put some shading and just see if there's any areas that you can kind of clean up or just make it look a little better, if you will. Simple as that. Just see if there's any areas that you can improve upon. For me, I see a couple areas even just over here that can just add, that can use just the slightest little bit more of lead. And I'm gonna do that really quickly because I do wanna finish this up as well. I wanna kind of, for your sake, also just show you the full process. The last step that I would say is grab a finer point pencil and just redraw some of these fine stem lines and vein lines that we put on earlier, and just make sure that you can still see them. In this case, you do want to see them, and you want to see them very fine. You don't really want them to be too thick, so try not to make them too thick. in some cases, your lines will go to the tips. So your vein lines will go towards these tips, but not every vein line has to go towards a tip. So just keep that in mind. So that's really what I'm doing here. This is starting to look really, really nice. And I'm actually, personally, I'm really happy with this look. I'm actually really, really happy with how this is looking. I'm happy with the veining. I'm not gonna keep at it. I'm just gonna clean up just some of the veining. So what you wanna do is just, for the last final touch up of this drawing, just smudge out your last bits. Make sure that you're really pulling this all together. And I would say that's pretty much it. You can go through and erase some of the smudging that is. I won't do it right now, but I'll say this. This was quite something. I'm really happy with the result, and hopefully you are too. Hopefully you're drawing along, and hopefully you're enjoying this process. So at this point, I'll say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day.